Professor Elias Sideras-Haddad is a nuclear scientist. Possibly the only thing he loves more than science is nature, which led him to Itemba Labs to delve in a hobby, as he calls it.
The idea developed because of the love that I have for the national parks in South Africa, particularly the Kruger National Park. As everybody knows, about 20 years ago, there was a banning on the elephant tusk trade, which meant that a very big resource, but financial resource that helps the park deal with economical problems actually disappeared. And the reason was, of course, to fight poaching. So I thought that perhaps we can fight poaching by using certain kind of scientific methods. Well, the idea was to actually put a time component in certain kind of regulations that they could be implemented internationally, and basically make things very difficult for poachers to trade. The time component comes, for example, from the idea that if there was a way to actually say that you are allowed to trade an elephant tusk as long as you know that the elephant died, let's say, about 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and he was more than 15 years old, so that he can have a normal life within the herd, so that we don't disturb the social life of the herd as well. Then perhaps if you are a poacher and you have killed an elephant, you won't make any profit because you will have to keep your tusks in the cupboard for 5 or 10 years. That means that your syndicate will be out of business.
The first nuclear weapons test, codenamed Trinity, was conducted in 1945. Nuclear testing escalated in the 1950s. The atmosphere was flooded with radioactive isotopes, including radiocarbon or carbon-14. Effects of the nuclear testing, such as changing weather patterns, increased cancer rate, and birth defects, led to the partial test ban treaty in 1963. Carbon-14 levels dropped dramatically and have since continued decreasing. This forms the foundation of Professor Sideras-Haddad's innovation.
It's based on the radiocarbon dating, a technique that uses a radioactive isotope of carbon that we all as living organisms have in ourselves in a stable kind of abundance. And as when we die, it starts reducing, and by measuring how much carbon-14 has remained in a fossil, for example, a bone, we can say when this particular organism died.
This idea was then applied to elephant ivory. Using a process called Accelerator mass spectrometry, the root and tip of an elephant tusk are analyzed. The amount of carbon-14 in the root and tip are matched with the amount of carbon-14 known to be in the atmosphere at specific times. And so the date of the elephant's birth and the date of death are determined.
Elephant tusk grows like a human nail outwards. That means that the tip of the elephant tusk is the oldest part when the elephant was born, and the root is the youngest part. And there was a hypothesis that there is no metabolism that is taking place along the tusk, which had to be tested, this hypothesis. Now, we took 3 different elephant tusks from the Kruger National Park with special permission, and we extracted many points along the ivory tusk, which represent a so-called age line. The tip is the oldest, the root is the youngest, and in between a lot of points to put onto the calibration curve and extract a very accurate date of birth and death.
The initial experiment was conducted at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in California. Professor Sideras-Haddad worked with colleague Tom Brown on a larger scale accelerator mass spectrometer.
So this is the control room of the accelerator. It's fully computerized, and the accelerator belongs to the Itemba Labs, which is run by the National Research Foundation of South Africa. So we can actually take a walk and you can see the path that the radiocarbon atoms, negative atoms, will follow as they are accelerated by the accelerator. What we see there is a tandem accelerator, 6 million volts accelerator, whereupon negative atoms that they are produced in this particular so-called ion source, this equipment, including the radiocarbon atoms that we would like to measure, they are produced in a negative form and then they are accelerated by a positive potential of 6 million volts. They travel a distance of about 50-60 meters directed through various electromagnetic methods onto nuclear detectors over the other side of the wall, where we are actually waiting for them to strike the detector and measure them with various computerized methods.
The application is not limited to elephant ivory only.
There has been a lot of interest in the project. Right now, Dr. Tom Brown is discussing with the wildlife management in the States about certain kind of applications of this technique, this particular patent regarding whale bones and how they can actually regulate certain kind of traits, like, for example, whales.
The patent of the project is held by the University of the Witwatersrand, where Professor Sideras-Haddad works. He hopes that governmental authorities will be persuaded by his idea and take it further.